Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Voxcaster. I'm your host Dan, and on today's episode, we're going to be doing a little tournament coverage. Over the weekend, there was the second installment of the GZ Eternal Wars series. In one segment, I'll be bringing on Alex Harris talking about the tournament itself and his second placing at the tournament, and I'll also be bringing on Nick Steeves talking about his first placement, his games, and his thoughts on the tournament. But before we jump into those interviews, I just want to give you guys a little bit of an update on our sponsors. For Comic Hunter, this month we're going to try something a little bit out. When you use promo code BHG Realm Lords, instead of 10% off your actual purchase, this time around you guys are going to be getting a 10% kickback on your overall purchase. So what that means is whatever your total is at the end of it when you check out, you'll get 10% of that on credit on your actual account for your next purchase towards GW products. Alright, so let's jump back into the episode and get on with those interviews. Alright, guys, I have with me Mr. Alex Harris.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
So I brought Alex on to talk about the second installment of the GZ Eternal Wars series and just give his insight as a player and also just kind of a little bit behind the scenes on how the tournament went. What did you think were positives compared to the first one? And yeah, just to see what you think of the future of it's going to foretell.
Yeah, no, it's having this be our second event in ninth, it certainly went a lot smoother. The logistics of how we run the events amidst COVID, as well as just the comfort on a technical level with the rules and mechanics, made the experience much easier for us behind the scenes. But I think the really telling part or of the weekend was the turnout. Our first events, although we had a lot of fun, only had 6 players show up. Um, this time we actually sold out a couple weeks ahead of time, and despite having several individuals drop out for very valid reasons, we still ended up firing 14 players. So it was a really good time, and yeah, it was super exciting. The reception we got was pretty positive, and we're going to be doing another one very soon.
Nice. So, like you're saying, like with the first one, only 6 people, and I'm kind of thinking myself, like, and you're starting to see it around too. It's like everybody's still kind of a little iffy about attending more than a 5 person gathering, this and that. But as things are leaning a little bit more, so obviously people probably see it's like, oh, okay, you know what, it's not so bad. So, like I said, this one it was great. You guys sold out at the 14 so early on. So here's hoping to like the next ones, and you're going to keep selling them out, and kind of get something kind of steady going on now that people are getting a little bit more comfortable being in a room with multiple people playing games. And
Yeah, I mean, from an event organizer point of view, it's on the Warhammer side of it. It's pretty interesting because we have to not only wrestle with the fact that it is a new edition, so people are uncomfortable with that, but
mm,
also, as you said, like amidst the COVID reality that we're all living in.
exactly.
But there was plenty of space. Everybody was wearing masks. There was very clear, like denoted places on where traffic flow was supposed to go. I was thrilled that I didn't have to remind anybody to wear masks. They were very vigilant of doing it themselves. And there was plenty of hand sanitizer to go around. So yeah, no, I think amidst like the COVID reality, we did pretty well, and at least everybody seems comfortable to keep repeating this event size. So it's we're not going to push it on the size, but
Mm,
yeah, we'll keep this going pretty regularly unless something dramatic changes.
yeah, and I think a lot at the end of the day, a lot of people are just happy to finally be able to be out playing the game they love. And like I said, it's like, you know what? If I have to wear the mask to go play, I'm going to wear that mask and just go play, roll some dice for a day. So,
Yeah, yeah, that was that was the sentiment I got. You can see as people were leaving, getting ready to go in their cars, they're ripping the masks off, and
just
they're a
grasping
little
that
they're
gas
they're
of air.
they're a little bit sweaty, but there were smiles all around. So
No, and at the end of the day, that's what honestly counts in events like this. I had a little bit of interview with your first place winner a little bit earlier, and he was just saying like it was the first event he was out to in a while, and he said he just had a great time. The community was great, all the players were great. There was no negative feedback. And it was just an overall good time, and I love hearing that. It makes me more pumped to start going to more of these tournaments. And especially like we are going to be hosting one coming up in October, and I'm excited to see like, all right, can we keep this momentum going, get all the people coming in and just enjoying and just having a good day?
Yeah, yeah, no, it was certainly positive. Lots of smiles, laughter, lots of people saying they would be coming back. Um, yeah, so I mean, from an event point of view, that's really awesome. I think one of the untold stories as well is we had a lot, like really good representation across the three large cities in the province. You know, obviously, Moncton came down with a sizable contingent. St. John showed up, some people I hadn't seen before, which was pretty awesome. And then I,
Nice.
I know at least 2 cars worth of people came from Fredericton. So
Nice.
yeah, so we had an overall turnout from the whole province, which was awesome.
No, and that's great to see. Like I said, finally seeing the people traveling around, and like, and it makes it fun too when you go to these tournaments from people from different areas. Like you're playing people that you're not playing every week at the local gaming club, and it's just like, all right, what can I pull on them, or what are they going to be pulling on me? And it's such a learning time for it.
Yeah, yeah, that was one of the awesome things. My second round opponent, I got to keep up with him throughout the event, and he was having a blast because he played 3 armies that he doesn't play locally,
Mm,
which is one of the great parts of this game. Is we all have like these metas or more popular factions in certain places. So when you start getting out of your own city, your own club, you start to see other players and other ways of playing, and then other armies that are being played. So no, it
mm.
was, it was great on that front.
No, that's great. And so, as a player aspect, I heard that yourself managed to pull second place out of the tournament. So I was just wondering if you would like to go over a little bit on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of people thought I was the TO for this event, which I'm just helping Chris out with a lot of the PR side of things. I am obviously involved with World's Edge Wargaming, but any of the events that go down in St. John are hosted by Chris.
Mm.
So big shout out to Chris for running a great event. I was just the guy creating the graphics to put on Facebook. So all the people who thanked me, I forwarded that along to Chris. But yeah, so that meant I got to play, which was fantastic. It was my second time bringing Harlequins to an event. It represented games 5 through 7 for me with Harlequins, so I'm pretty green when it comes to them. But they're in a really good place.
Oh no, definitely.
Yeah, in ninth edition. I had to keep saying to people, no, don't worry. I've been building these since before Psychic Awakening came out, when they were absolute trash. But no, they were a lot of fun. They're exactly what I like to play in a game. And I had 3 great opponents that challenged me in pretty different ways. In round 1, I got to play against Chris's Eldar, which actually threw me through a loop because I hadn't seen Eldar lists like this. He ran really Star Cannon heavy,
Okay.
which really terrified me for my Skyweavers. Obviously,
Mm.
3 wounds, and in the first round, watching him roll nothing but 5s and 6s on his damage, I was like, oh my god, he's killing. You know, every shot he's killing at least one of my bikes, and at 1,500 points, you don't have a lot of bikes.
No.
But I managed to get some key spells off and just tie up a huge chunk of his army. I think the speed of Harlequins, particularly on these reduced board sizes, kind of catch people off guard.
Hmm.
And once I had managed to tag, the vast majority of his firepower, yeah, he was retreating and still doing a lot of damage to me, but it was quickly shifting in my favor.
Mm. But even tagging him in, like you were saying, yeah, you can fall back, but now he's still spending command points and this and that. So you're still willing away his resources to enable you to be able to score these extra secondaries and primary points where you're stopping him because you're not limiting him to what he can do. And
Yeah, exactly. And by being the aggressor as well, by forcing him to react to me, it gave me more latitude to grab the points that I needed.
Mhm.
But he was a savvy opponent. I think in the second turn, his dice failed him. In the first round, I thought I was like, oh my god, if he keeps rolling like this, it doesn't matter what I do, he's just going to beat me. And in the second round, it was a complete reversal of his fortunes, and he had a hard time correcting his backstep from that.
Oh, okay.
Managed to get in on him. But great opponent, had a blast of a game. round two, I was playing against one of Moncton's own, Brody and his Grey Knights, and that I had never played, or I shouldn't say I've never played. It's been a long time since I've played against Grey Knights.
Mm.
They're good now, or they're better than they have been in a long time. Having him be able to fire, 40 Stormbolter shots without requiring line of sight,
Oh,
and
I was the target of that in the practice games. I feel your pain.
I was like, how do I respond to this? Like, it doesn't matter what I seem like, what I'm doing. So I ended up castling against him and just stacking my Shadow Weaver debuffs and throwing my characters out to try and kill one of those squads in a
Mm.
turn. And, I think he had the game uh, going into turn three. It was very it was very favored towards him. And we both said, if his left side collapses from my characters, then
Hmm.
he's lost the game, or at least he's now on the back foot.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Oh, okay.
My warlord, I stacked him out to be basically a marine killer,
Mm.
and that's what he did. He killed a lot of marines in that game. It's pretty easy when you're throwing out 7, 8 attacks plus 2 mortal wounds per attack, to mulch up some marines. And against Grey
Mm.
Knights, it wasn't relevant, but his attacks were also 2 damage apiece.
Yeah.
So yeah, rinse repeat that a couple times, and he was running out of marines. I think going into round 5, he had a bunch of characters and 1 dreadnought,
Mm.
against not like a fair amount of harlequins. And he had a Hail Mary play where he could throw all his characters onto my last unit of Skyweavers and a troop squad, who were also ironically sitting on an objective, which would have equaled out the points a bit more. But he just failed with all 3 character charges, failed to kill 2 troops and a single Skyweaver.
Oh no.
Yeah, RNG on 4-up involves will do that, which then of course allowed me to clean up afterwards because
Okay.
I had other elements coming in. But yeah, no, great opponent, really interesting. I know he had also never played against Harlequin, so it was really interesting. I didn't know what Grey Knights could do. He didn't know what Harlequins could do.
He
We
even
were
said in practice games, he's like, I don't want to play Alex's Harlequins.
yeah, it was interesting. I was like, oh my god, how is he getting all these buffs? Like, it seems like these Grey Knights can't be beaten. But the reality is they're very, very much like Harlequins, are very glass cannon.
Hmm.
Once I got engaged with the things that I needed to, they started to melt. But
Hmm.
the firepower was very off-putting.
Yeah.
Um, and then going into round 3, I got to play against another Chris and another Eldar player. So second Chris, second Eldar. And he played very differently from the first Eldar player, who instead he was relying on lots of Shining Spears and Avatar of Cain. He was running Jane Czar, and had a Farseer running around on a jet bike with some other things, including Dark Reapers. Dark Reapers were putting in work. We got into a swirling melee turn 2, as you would expect with Shining Spears and a bunch of aggressive Harlequins. And basically, the center of the board continued to be a bloodfest, right down to turn 5. Um, at the end of the day, he came out of the swirling melee on top. He had a lot more models left on the board. In fact, I think I ended the game with a Death Jester, 1 Skyweaver, and 1 Shadow Seer, and he still had an Avatar, Jane Czar, Dark
Mm.
Reapers, and his Farseer. But I was lucky. The secondaries I picked worked in my advantage. I ended up scoring almost max on my secondaries, just because I was engaging him, and he needed to devote a lot more resources to stopping me. That allowed me to continue scoring.
Okay.
So yeah, we played it out. I was like, if this was a turn 6 kind of game like it used to be, he would have just tabled me.
Mm. And I hear that a
Yeah,
lot, just being 5 turns now. Like that's the big breaker right there. Because I've seen so many people go into like finish turn 5, like you were saying, like yourself, being like on the upper hand. But that one more turn, it would have been your complete downfall. And I've lost games myself, just being like, just please end here. You roll the dice, you're like, turn 6, and then you're just done.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's I actually found the turn 5 limitation very like much like it changes the games in a lot of different ways and ways that I hadn't considered. Um, so yeah, no. Overall, I'm loving ninth. Easy to say when I came out of the event quite well, but I didn't do nearly as well in the 1,000 point event. But I've loved every game of ninth I've been able to
No,
play.
that's good. That's good. So now, like you said, where you've had 7, 8 games now with Harlequins, with the secondaries, do you find yourself when you built your list, do you find that you're making them more around certain secondaries? Obviously, there's certain secondaries, obviously, are going to depend on the opponent that you are playing against. But do you catch yourself more often than none choosing the same secondaries going into each round where Harlequins being such a fast table covering army? Do you find like engage all fronts and stuff like that? Do you find yourself grabbing stuff like that more often than none?
Yeah, I think every game I picked engage on all fronts and psychic ritual. Um, and then the third secondary was just based on flavor. I know I
Mm.
picked the secondary that's often involved in the scenario. But yeah, I mean, engage on all fronts is just so easy to score when most of your things can move 22 inches.
Mm.
So you're basically scoring that right from turn one, and it's not too hard to start getting all 4 quarters. So yeah, as a Harlequin player, I found engage on all fronts is just kind of like a gimme. And psychic ritual, I think a lot of people were down on. At least the people I was speaking to. I haven't seen enough coverage to see what the larger meta says, but I find just where I can be very aggressive, I end up sending a lot of my Shadow Seers in the center of the board anyways,
Mm.
just to be able to put out the buffs or cast spells wherever is necessary, and then I can move them back or whatever. Um, so because I'm already in the center, Psychic Ritual just felt like a very safe secondary to take, especially having more than one caster.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, in every game that I took Psychic Ritual, I scored it, which is 15 points. That's huge.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, like I said, the secondary was usually, or the my third secondary was usually dependent on the scenario. So yeah, as a Harlequin player, I felt it's not a stretch to say most Harlequin players are going to take 2 Shadow Seers. But comparing that to the 1,000 point list I was running with, uh, it made the secondaries much more, I should say, much easier to decide on which ones I was going to be
Yeah.
taking. So yeah.
No, perfect, perfect. Well, like huge congratulations on your second place on it. I'm going to have an interview with the first place, Mr. Nick Steeves, on a little bit later on. But yeah, no, just huge congratulations there. Great job on helping out with the second event. And huge thanks to Chris for hosting the event. We'll definitely be looking forward to your guys' next event. And once you guys get a date and all the information on that, we'll definitely be shouting it out here on BHG. And hopefully we'll see you guys down here on October 3rd for the BHG Fall Bash, some Fredericton representation.
Yeah, no, we're certainly going to advertise for it and help you guys out on that front. But yeah, I have a vested interest in coming because I did go undefeated in this event, and Nick beat me on points.
So you just need that
So,
revenge
so
now.
yeah, Nick, I'm coming for you, bud.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alex, for joining me on this interview, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, Danny, take care.
Hey guys, and joining me now is Mr. Nick Steeves, who took first place overall at this weekend's GZ Eternal War Series tournament. He'll be giving you a full breakdown of his list, his games, and what he thought of the tournament. So thanks for joining me today, Nick. So how are we doing?
Thanks for having me, man. How's it going, folks?
So pretty much yesterday was the second installment of the GZ Eternal Wars Series tournament, and Nick took top spot representing Moncton.
Yeah.
So essentially we'll just start off by, if you want to just go through your list and let us know what you had.
All right. Well, I was playing Adeptus Mechanicus, The Boys from Mars would be my Forge World. I was running a detachment battalion, ran by my two HQs being the Tech Priest Dominus, equipped with just like his basic loadout, Volkite Blaster and whatnot. Gave him, the only kind of useful relic in the AdMech book, being the Autocaedicus, or however you want to say that, of Arkan Land, and gave him the Warlord traits, the Holy Warlord trait from the newer book Engine of War called Divinations of the Magos. And it's his bubble that gives a 6-inch bubble of 6s to hit with ranged weapons cause an additional hit, so 6s cause 2 hits, which is ridiculously powerful. And then I had a Tech Priest Manipulus. I spent the CP to give him an extra Warlord trait called the Prime Hermeticon, which gives reroll failed hits in the fight phase with him. And I ended up putting him in just a transport, the newer U-boat looking AdMech transports, the Scorpius Dune Rider, with a unit of 9 Electro Priests, so that Fulgurite Electro Priests, so that they can just zip up the board. My troops, I ran just 4 units of 5 Vanguard. 2 of them that were my more forward unit running Vanguard had enhanced data tethers, so they can reroll morale tests. And I had a unit of 5 Cataphren Breachers for some anti-tank and some tough troop backline sitting, scary dudes. So I had my Electro Priest. I had 2 fast attacks, 1 unit of Taraxi Sterilizers, so that they could deep strike, and with their 12-inch flamers, they're pretty effective. Cerberus Raiders, so they can run up also for the engage in all fronts kind of thing, and give me the option to snipe characters if I needed to. They also make for really good distractions. And I ran a Archaeopter Fusilier as a flyer to drop bombs on folks and run the stratagem to slow units down, some key alpha charging units of the enemy. And ran 2 heavy supports with both of the main Scorpius Disintegrators equipped with the Belleros Energy Cannon for ignoring line of sight. And then I had 1 more transport that had 2 of my Vanguards placed in it. That would be it.
Alrighty. So in this tournament, did you find yourself with your list built? So did you kind of mold it around certain secondaries? Because obviously every matchup's going to be a little bit differently depending on who you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
But did you have like certain secondaries in mind running this unit that you know that you can probably take in any game and still be able to get maybe not necessarily max points, but give you a good enough amount of points that you're just guaranteed be like, I play this one style and I'm going to get them?
Yeah, so when I looked at the secondaries when Ninth came out, the first thing that occurred to me is the secondaries that I could see that were under your control entirely were positional ones. So I built my army to be more maneuverable and fast. I'm not building a bubble AdMech list. I find bubbles in this edition are kind of moot now. But a lot of the kill objectives is like the grind them down, or you have to kill more than your opponent, and you don't have control over that. You could have a whiff of a turn, or they can have a killer of a turn. So I built my army around using engage in all fronts, because it's quite easy with the flyer and with 2 transports and horse riders and Taraxi. I have just so many things that can just run to whatever corner I need them to. And I also typically take Raise the Banners High depending on the mission. If the mission has 6 objectives, I typically will, because I have so many troop choices that I designed the army so that they could sit on the objectives and claim the banners while I sent my beefy tanks up in their face to get not only to get the mark for engage on all fronts, but a lot of people against me, because I have 5 vehicles, will bring it down so that they get the points for my tanks, which is fine. And I kind of realized this, and this part was not on purpose. I kind of realized this in the tournament. But I feel it better that I can feed them the 14 max points from what they can gather from Bring It Down on my army to make them less inclined to go after objectives. They get real antsy to get those secondary points on my tanks, that it gives me opportunity to claim primaries I'll max out primaries within the first 3 turns. I think there's only one point in the tournament where I didn't max out on a turn with 15 primary points. And once I could do that, then I could focus on stopping him from getting anywhere near primaries. And like my only the secondary I chose was based on who I was playing, and then I could focus on that last secondary. But primaries were the big reason why I won the tournament, because I managed to max out mine and kept my opponent from maxing out on theirs. So that was the idea behind the team.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm noticing that in a lot of tournaments right now, and that's what a lot of people actually say is primary, if you can max those off, like you said yourself, in 3 turns and then stop your opponent from doing so, then like I said, that's huge. That's 45 points right off the bat in 3 turns. And if you're denying your opponent those 45 points, and they're also not able to get their secondaries off you by like strategically putting characters or models in a certain area, then like you're way ahead right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
No, nice. So as far as your opponents, so 3 rounds yesterday. So if you want to give us a little bit of a walk through your 3 opponents and what did they play?
Okay, give me a second to bring up my list of people here. All right. So my first game was against Ian Osborne. He was playing Grey Knights. He was rocking a big old Paladin, or not Paladin, but Terminator Grey Knight list. 5 units of 5 Grey Knights, if I recall. Vendread, and a couple characters. That was pretty much his whole list, which is scary because of he had a couple things in Deep Strike. He has all that psychic that I can't deal with, and Terminators in general. My team that I ran, I don't have much in the way of AP, and with the Grey Knights Shroud, one of their 3, I forget what you call them, tides. It gives them cover, so they're effectively 1-up saves, and I only had a few things that could bring them to a 3-up save. I had nothing over AP -2. I just have like a lot of guns, so it took a lot of him rolling 1s to start doing damage to this stuff. So that game was unfortunately for Grey Knights, Abhor the Witch is a big old shoot in the foot for them. So you can farm points off them. You can max that off real easy as long as you have kill power. And also luckily for me, my bomber was ignorantly tough against his dudes. He was at 1 health for I think 2 or 3 turns. He just couldn't kill it, and it allowed me to drive over some Terminator units, doing 3 to 4 mortal wounds each time. I got pretty lucky on my bomb drops, which is 2 Terminators being killed for free was excellent. But the type of deployment that we had in that game, which was kind of hammer and anvil looking, made it so that he couldn't really get in range of any of his guns, and I could start peppering him from a distance. I could kill the Terminator unit that was on the only Terminator unit on the my left flank, so it forced him to drop some his other reinforcements more on the left flank and midfield instead of right in my face to hold more objectives. And but it was an unfortunate matchup for us. He also rolled very unfortunately because of that flyer. Also, the highlight of the game, or on a low light, I guess, he deep struck one of his characters that ran this combo to use the stratagem to be able to use the spell Inner Fire. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
No.
It's a spell that you roll to cast, and then if it casts, whatever you roll that many dice. So he rolled, I think, an 11, which was crazy. So then he rolls 11 dice. On 3+, I take mortal wounds, but on a 1, he takes a mortal wound. And he casted it on my vehicle, and he rolled 5 1s and killed himself.
Oh no. I kind of sensed where this was going whenever you were explaining it. I'm like, oh, the joys of 1s.
Yeah, so it was a really unfortunate situation because it may have been able to give him the opportunity to kill. It was my transport with my monks, which would have forced them out, and then with all of his Stormbolter fire with his Terminators, he may have been able to clear that big old threat of mortal wounds to Terminators. But he killed himself, which was the only person he had that was going to be able to claim Linebreaker as one of his secondaries.
Okay.
And because of the way I deployed, he didn't have an opportunity to deep strike anything else in my lines, just that one character. And so after that, it was just kind of a downhill. He was just trying to get as many points as he could for future games, set himself up.
Mm.
And the game ended up being, I believe, I maxed out my points. I got max banner, max engage on all fronts, and I maxed out Abhor the Witch, and I maxed out my primary. So I got all 100
Nice.
points, and he got around 50 some, I do believe.
Okay. And then for game 2.
Game 2, I faced a nightmare of a team for AdMech. It was Michael Henry. He was playing Salamanders, or an offshoot of Salamanders.
Oh, okay, and everybody right now, Salamanders is the big talk. So
Yeah, so I got to experience them, and I haven't really had much experience playing Salamanders. Like I watched some tabletop tactics and stuff, and other battle reports where they're playing them, but there's some key stratagems I completely forgot about. So a big idea I had in my mind for my list when I made it was my Cerberus Raiders. I had a lot of hope for them. So another thing I designed my list to do is, if I got first turn, which against Mike Henry was the only game I got to go first, was the Archaeopter with its fat base would drive over a unit, because the Archaeopter can turn mid-flight and keep flying, clip a unit, and then I'd use the stratagem to have their movement and then plop it right in front of them. And it, because their movement is slow, they can't physically make it across my base, so it stops them from moving up the field. And my Cerberus Raiders would do the same, because they get a 9-inch movement in the beginning of the game, and then they move 14. So they're right up in your face. I put them right in front of a unit. And they have the stratagem that if someone charges my Cerberus Raiders, they get to just run away 14 inches. So it effectively stops that unit from moving as well. So I can just keep control of the board turn 1 by making them not move. And then the other primary thing I had in my head was, with Raiders having the sniper ability, I stack it with the Wrath of Mars stratagem, which is 6s to wound cause an additional mortal wound. And they already have the sniper ability, the Eye of Cerberus, which does 6s to a mortal wound. So every wound of a 6 does 2 mortal wounds to a character. And he had it was like a bike smash captain or something along those lines. And I ran up my horses. I got right into range of his bike captain. I used the stratagem because I took cut off the head, because his team was well designed to kind of shut down on secondaries. So because he only had, I think, 2 characters, so I couldn't really do or assassinate, and everything else was not reliable enough. So I figured my best chance would be to go for the killing the character. And I went up. I used the Wrath of Mars stratagem. I was just about to shoot him, and I forgot Salamanders had that stratagem that it's like sacrifice something rather, where if you have a unit of 3 or more intercessors or space marines around him, you have to shoot them first.
Okay.
So it was kind of a halt in my plans, so I didn't get to shoot the character at all.
Okay.
So that was a rough go, and then I misplayed and allowed him to get his grav bomb drop pod right in front of me and shoot at my Scorpius student, or my tanks, which he killed one, but I got lucky. He didn't end up killing the second one. But yeah, that game, once that happened, he had placed most of his like alpha terrifying units, being the aggressors and the blade, the new blade guard, I guess they're called.
Blade Guard veterans, yeah.
Yeah, and the drop pod. He also put the eradicator unit of eradicators. He ran 2 of those, so that was one of those 2 units of aggressors, all on one flank. So once I realized that was not happening, I shifted all my focus to the right flank, or my other flank, where he had just like a few units of intercessors and 1 contemptor dreadnought, I believe.
Okay.
And just was like, I'll just take care of this side of the board. I'll let this side of the board do its thing. However, the only thing I wanted to do was clear the grav unit and the drop pod, because he placed it right on an objective. And once I cleared that, it would make him take some time moving his blade guard and stuff from his back corner. Meanwhile, I would just take over the other side of the table, which worked up until turn 4, where it was a battle of attrition and I was losing. He was cutting through my stuff, and by the end of it, I was left with a transport, and my Teraxi Stalkers and my Teraxi Sterilizers, the Flamer guys.
Okay.
Then I'm a transport one character, all pretty much in combat with his Thunderfire cannon just to keep in combat so he couldn't shoot my transport
Okay.
to get the extra points for bring it down. And I just sat there. So the only thing that kept me going was I ended up being able to place a few banners along the way, and his mobility was gone, so it took him a long time for his stuff to get to the objectives to clear them.
Okay.
So that game was very close. I think it ended up like 81 to 71 or something along those lines.
Okay.
And in the finals, well, it was two tables playing for possible finals. So I was playing Ben Pottley's playing Dark Angels, where Alex Harris was facing Chris Cowie. Both of them had 2 wins at the time. And yeah, I get to play the Dark Angels, and that game was interesting. He has a lot of kill, but he was running 2 units of Eradicators, which scares me to death. The only thing that I mentioned this to him when we were playing, like a few turns in, once we started seeing how the game was going, was he was doing the same like 8th edition Dark Angel deployment, kind of like a big old mosh pit.
Okay, just like a giant Battlestar type thing.
Yeah, he had like a Talon Master, he had Samael, he had a Librarian, he had an Apothecary, 2 units of Eradicators, a 5-man bike unit, and something else just in this big old clump on one corner, because it was the the corner deployment, like
okay.
line 24 inches in between. And he put it all on the right flank, and he had 1 unit of intercessors on the left flank. So I placed a lot of my stuff on the left flank just to take care of them, so I could hold that whole side of the board. And then my plan was I put my transport with my monks on the flank closest to his bubble, and it was behind dense cover, so it would give my transport some protection. But my plane was also right next to it, and my plane, if it's good for anything, it's for target saturation. That everyone's scared of the plane. And because it's already got a built-in -1, it's already kind of hard to kill. So it took him. It was unfortunate for him because he would have killed it early. He hit my plane with 3 last cannon shot. Was it last cannon? Yeah, it was 3 last cannon shots during first turn. So heavy doctrine was active. I had Shroud Psalm, so my cover save was working on my plane. So I had a 6+ save on these 3 things, and I rolled trip 6s to save my plane.
Oh no.
And
I mean, good for you, but
yeah. And because of it, it forced all his Eradicators to fire at the plane as well, and they're not as accurate as the Dreadnought. So he only got to hit a few times. So I took both of his Eradicator units, pretty much all of his shooting. He took down my plane, but he ended up killing my Breacher squad as well, which is the heaviest blow I've dealt with in the first turn. And he killed a unit of Vanguard I had there holding the objective. But luckily, he didn't get to touch the boat with my monks in it. And he had placed his unit of Eliminators on an objective, so they were not very far from that transport. So I hopped out with them, and I moved up. And on my shooting, I killed most of his bikes and a unit of intercessors that were on the other flank. And I ended up getting a charge off with the monks. I killed the bikes, I killed his Eliminators, and I sat on an objective, used the acquisition at all costs, so my monks had a 2-up invuln. And it was right next to his big old bubble of stuff. So there's like no point in trying to deal with that, because the majority of the shooting was anti-tank.
Okay.
And there was a big piece of obscuring terrain right in the center, and a lot of my stuff was hiding behind that. So he shifted his attention to that other flank that I was taking over. So he drove his whole bubble back to his corner of the table and shot and cleared a bunch of my stuff holding objectives there, but I already managed to get some banners off, so that was farming me points. And my monks then proceeded to go up, charge. I had taken Assassinate because he had 4 characters on his list. And my monks managed to get into that bubble, and they remained in that bubble for the rest of the game. He got them down to 2 monks remaining, but they killed his in the end, they were responsible for killing, I think, 3 of his characters. Samael
Oh,
died at the end when I got to shoot him a bunch. Because at the end, I had 2 tanks a character and 2 monks left. He had Samael, pretty much just his characters left.
oh, okay.
And like by turn 4, it was that kind of look, but his anti-tank stuff was on one side of this obscuring terrain. Both my Dune or disintegrators were on the other, so he didn't have the movement to be able to move and see them. And then I would just ring around the rosy him and shoot him with line of sight ignoring guns.
Okay.
And so by the end of it, I think it was around 87 to uh, 59 or 60, something along those lines.
Okay.
It was a good game. I think it would have been way harder for me to deal with if his deployment was a little more uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Rather than just clumped into one spot, you would have been able to have a little bit more board control and get to you a little bit quicker on certain ends.
yeah, like I mean, it made it so that his shooting was unbelievably accurate, and he was rolling. The first turn, he rolled very well, but for the next couple turns, he rolled a little below average, which hurt him. But that first turn, it's the Space Marine reroll bubbles that they have,
Mm.
all that anti-tank. It was a nightmare to deal with. But you know.
So after your 3 rounds, do you find that there was that one particular unit that you find would be considered your MVP? Like, who do you think probably slugged the most work out of all of the units you had?
Mm, I think my transports. I think transports in the edition are pretty incredible. They give you that staying power, especially if you fill it with troops or obsec or something that can, if they pop your tank, it's worse in my opinion. So having the monks in one was like it put a target on that boat, and because of the 0 command point stratagem the AdMech have in Engine War, where if you kill a transport, I don't even have to roll to see if anything dies. You just get out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's just like a free. It's called emergency evacuation or evacuation plans, just a sequence or something along those lines. And yeah, it's 0 CP, and I don't roll any dice. They just, after I roll the explosion and whatnot, they just hop out. So the whole unit's fine. So I don't have to worry about losing some monks anymore when I throw them in that transport. They have 12 heavy stubber shots, and if I get the canticle off, the Mars specific canticle, which I swapped out for my second canticle every game, then they became strength 5 heavy stubbers, which effectively wounded on 3s on everything because all 3 of my games were against Space Marines of some sort.
So you're looking at tough 4, and so yeah.
Exactly. So I was doing a lot of damage through volume of fire because, I mean, 3-up armor, but if I wound you 8 times, you're going to fail a few of them. And I had 2 transports, and my plane also had 4 heavy stubbers. So it's 36 shots going through at Space Marines. You're going to fail mathematically about, like, I don't know, 8 of them. That's 4 dead intercessors. That's almost an entire unit of intercessors just from, like, light fire from transports. But they're not so strong that people want to focus them. There's like the threat of my disintegrators doing flat 2 damage and big missile shots and all that stuff that they try to get their view on that, or they go after my plane because of the mortal wounds output. But the transports, they zip up the board. They just sit there on objectives, or they sit in the engage in all fronts. And one troop unit I'll have hop out. I'll literally place my tank sideways so they're hiding behind my tank so that they can't draw line of sight to my dudes. They'll raise banners, then I'll hop back in my vehicle. Or if I need to move my vehicle out, I'll just leave the Vanguard there and zip my vehicle up further. And there was only one person that was actively going after my Vanguard, like early, and it was the Dark Angels player. He was trying to clear what I was holding on objectives. The Salamander's player, he at the end of the game when he was running out of targets or range and he was trying to catch up on the primaries, he then started hunting down my Vanguard that were just kind of scattered about the table holding objectives. But the transports, if someone shoots at the transport, it's anti-tank fire. You don't have to worry about going at your more devastating vehicles. But if they ignore them, I'm just getting secondary points and primary points for sitting on objectives for multiple turns throughout the game.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, sounds good. Sounds good that you had like really good matchups, and it seems like none of them was really a super blowout because there's nothing more fun than, like I said, just a nice tight game that gets you down to like the last couple of turns. And it seems like I said in this edition, it's like maneuvering is key. It's like
Oh,
it'll either make you or break you in a game, and
yeah, absolutely. And like another great thing is all three of my opponents were fantastic opponents. Like it was exciting to the end. We all three of my games, which is the first time I've ever been to at a tournament, went to last turn. Like we with 1,500 points in this new edition, you can comfortably get through 5 turns.
mm,
Depending on your army, I guess. I guess if you're playing a
yeah.
horde army, it's a little slower, but we made it, and they were fun. Like we just had a good time. It was chatting, joking, whatnot, all the way to the end. It was a good time.
No, perfect. Well, a huge congratulations to you, Nick. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you on October 3rd at the Bolters and Heretics Fall Bash.
You betcha.
Alrighty, guys, so before we sign off on this episode, let's jump over and see what's up for pre order this week. And the only thing this week up for pre order is Warhammer Underworlds, the Arena Mortis set. Don't forget to jump over to the Comic Hunters web store, and you get a discount on when you pre order it. So thanks to everybody who came to check us out on this episode. This is Dan signing out. Have a good night.